Bon, alors,
Ouais.
Chris, bonsoir.
Bonsoir, monsieur.
Sean is right next to you, and in the middle we have a virgin. Monsieur Joachim from Holland,
Bonsoir.
and Monsieur the crucified on this other side. Don't take me too seriously. Now, the subject of our conversation was to be knowledge, the formal subject, knowledge of the afterlife. And I shared a few notes with you all.
Mhm.
I suppose what sparked the thought of having a conversation on this subject was a habit that we have in our day to conceive of the afterlife of man in one of two ways, either as, either clinically as a psychotic extravaganza, or non-clinically as a neo-romantic extravaganza. There is, it occurred to me, perhaps a good reason to revive, recollect, as it were, a traditional, classical, Platonic understanding of knowledge of the afterlife as that which all knowledge is ultimately about. So perhaps it can be helpful just to refresh our memory, to read quickly this paragraph of notes, really, where I suggested that, or whoever suggested that all knowledge is recollection of the afterlife. That is to say, a gathering of awareness or regaining familiarity with real and grounding problems or the essential dynamics of life. Now, that would be what is behind or beyond any mask, any appearance. And what is beyond the appearance of things? Well, for the classics, it's not rules and regulations, as if one were to say, imagine a matrix, you live in a matrix. What's behind? It's the rules of the machine, the mechanisms. That's what's hidden. It is certainly not laws that the classics seek behind the appearances, but it is a mind. Now, laws, as we all know, are deaf and blind to us. Minds certainly need not be deaf and blind to us and to the particularities of life, the uniqueness of man. Yeah? But, behind the facade for the classics, there could be such a thing as friendship. There could be virtue. I had an interlocutor who was denying that for Thomas Aquinas, there was virtue in the afterlife. But that's absolutely false. There certainly is justice as a virtue in the afterlife for the soul. So it goes on. And now, entering into the intelligible world, I'm going back to the notes, not as bystanders, or objective outsiders. So looking at the out, when I spoke about just now extravaganzas, looking at it from the outside. Let's talk about the afterlife as if it were something that is out there, information. Let's read a book about it, as opposed to something else, something of another order. So if, platonically speaking, all knowledge is knowledge of the afterlife, then we would have to say that knowledge as such is not what we're used to regarding as knowledge, where we say that I know this, how this works. I know why, propositional, and so forth. Yeah, remaining on the level of surfaces. It has to be something else. But what is it? It seems to be bound to what I was saying there, participation. We are participants whose knowledge is virtue and who know in the act of relating problems to one another. And by being one with the relations or the nexi, yeah, between spheres of intelligibility, what is meant there? We're no longer the subject, to speak in modern terms, who has an object, but we are mediating problems. We're mediating. We are the mediation. We are the link, the missing link between realities, as it were. That is to say, problems, spheres of intelligibility. This type of situation, that type, permanent types. And we are linking them together. We are that link. In that sense, knowledge of the afterlife would pertain to that. Now, it would entail an entering into the intelligibility of things, to become that intelligibility finally, to regain our place as living link between worlds. And this is something that is related, I think, to the problem of polytheism, what the moderns call polytheism. There is no overarching world in sight for us. We do not see the overarching world, and the reason is accessible to us. We can know worlds, but not the world, the whole. Knowing now is linking or relating or mediating. We can know only what we can mediate, not what we make, as the moderns say, which is to say something opaque. For the ancients, the made is a mirror of unmade maker as relating worlds. The note continues, dialogue is knowledge, again, right? If we think about Plato, just reminders. Dianoesis as key. If you look at Dante, Dante is exploring in the Commedia the underworld as spheres. Yeah? Of course, the medieval theme of the spheres of heaven. The overarching marks a transposition into overarching nexus, providence. When Dante is about to reach the overarching, he falls. What binds all worlds together is this providence, but with a reminder, a remainder. I'm reading those notes and my eyes are not good. With a remainder. Dante has to return to the beginning. Okay? He doesn't end up in providence. He returns. The beginning is human, not cosmic. The real task and function of man there is to link worlds, not to consume himself into a world into which all worlds are resolved. Providence without end. Relating, retracing spheres of the good as general providence. Human representation of general providence is particular providence. So here the point is for Dante, as for the whole tradition he stands for, that our goal, Sean was speaking about our destiny, our goal as human beings, our end as human beings is human. It is not simply divine, but our goal as human beings is something precious, something to be rediscovered, and it has to do with what the classics would call particular providence. God, we could say, is as blind to the particulars as most men are blind to spiritual matter things, to the universals, as it were, but to spiritual. He is as blind to appearances as we are blind to what is beyond appearances. But of course, there is an
A weaving.
a kind of fusion of horizons between the human and the divine. Clearly, there is a point where we have access to that. But this would be somewhat, there's general providence. The ancient pagans conceded that. Clearly, there's general providence. That's what Cicero was all about in some dialogue. And then there's particular providence. But what is this particular providence? It is the hero. It is the man who has fulfilled his telos, who is living it out. And he is the particular providence that, of course, functions in relation to this general providence. Now, this was the. I'll get to your second. There was also a part on the newness, the fact that we can be lost in newness, and for the ancients, the new is not of the essence, not of the essence. Should I tackle that, or did you perhaps, Sean, did you already take a look at that?
No,
okay.
But I can respond to it. Like, first of all, the afterlife. Think about geometry. Geometry is atemporal. It exists in a space outside of time. It's here. It is infinite. But that's not even that's too nebulous of a term.
And insubstantial, however.
Well, no, hold on. It's atemporal, and we are temporal beings. We're finite temporal beings who move through time. So for
our bodies are.
Hold on. Okay. So when you have access to the atemporal, when you have access to what I was discussing is destiny, your access to this atemporality, it puts you in a state of sublimity. You're able to enter into this atemporal realm where you're fulfilling some dimension of your destiny within it. And then you come back down into this realm, and the particular aspects of virtue, like seeing children playing, everything, it feeds into everything properly, because you have a genuine set of priorities to understand reality through. You know that you come from an atemporal realm that is pure sublimity and pure crystalline form. You've accessed it, you've been there, you've been in that realm. And when you come back into this realm, there's no sense like people have when they feel a sense of disenchantment or dismay. None of that exists. You're able to deal with the dharma of existence and the ability to spend time with the women and children and things like this, because you can see that that is a particular reflection of this general state that you've been in. So all of your dissatisfaction no longer exists. You're able to deal with the responsibilities of life because you don't perceive them that way anymore. You're completely grounded within your being.
Okay, but here, Sean, excuse me. Fine, okay, but do we not have a kind of problem of two truths here? Namely, I mean, a kind of prima facie view of Plato's cave, yes? Yeah? Where, yeah, you've seen the light, then you go back down and you see that these things, the particulars, are a kind of reflection of, if I understand your point, which is a classical...
Well, I'm not saying that the beings in the cave have seen that light. The point is that we must see that light.
Clearly, that is not what Plato's text suggests, or even on the surface. It is the philosopher who has to make his way out. And then when he comes down, he can see. But it is not clear that he sees these people as reflections of the light, of the ideas. It is not clear. And it is also...
That story represents Socrates drinking the hemlock. There's a relationship there between what they did to Socrates and the fact that at the end of the allegory, he goes back into the cave and they kill him when he tries to say there is another realm. The end of the allegory.
Yeah, okay. Yes, but I mean, this in terms of the question of right, or this is as saying that there is such a thing as a right that transcends the dictates of a society, and of course they'll want to chop your head off for that, but especially because it doesn't coincide with the dictates of the gods as represented by the authorities. So, of course, it's not.
But even on an
So,
interpersonal level, this is true. Even with the people in our own individual lives, the critical challenge is to know when you've seen that atemporal realm, how
Yeah,
do you, how do you then
yeah,
uh, have the nobility and the spirituality to then see existence in all its present faults? Those faults are merely the faults of people who have not, who have yet to visualize the atemporal realms of. This is why we can have sympathy for them, no matter how terrible they are, because it's always a reflection of a being who has not experienced that atemporal realm. That's what that is.
yeah,
That's the nastiness of humanity, and the
yeah.
difficulty and the implacability and the impossibility. It when you know that, though, that is a very, very good thing for your own soul, because you don't have to take it subjectively, personally. You know that there is a way. There is a way to help each soul to visualize that thing, so they no longer have to be this nasty, secular, subjective thing, which they are at present.
Mm, mm,
And there is a way to show them
mm,
something better.
mm. I
Or
hear you. I hear you. I hear
perhaps
you.
they'll kill you when you try to show them. Maybe I don't know what you must do, because look what happened at the end of the allegory. He tried to tell them that, and they killed
Okay.
him. It's very interesting.
Okay. However, however, one could ask. Well, we can ask various questions about that. One of them would be, and I don't ask anyone to answer, and I will be the last to answer. But I mean, why not stay in that world? And I mean, okay, it looks like the myth of the mythos, yeah, the story of the cave suggests that okay, that the philosopher's job is to return and to help others. Um, and one wonders, yeah,
Well,
why
this is
would
where
he?
it gets
Why
interesting.
would he really return? What is it that he has seen? We don't really. We're not told. What is it that he has seen that
I know we
prompts him to return? There is, I mean, if the realm of, hold on, if the realm of the ideas is perfection, why not remain? What is it that he has seen or understood or sensed or intuited, faced with that vision, that prompts him to return and to sacrifice his life, whatever that means? Why is it that the philosopher returns, and then is it the mosquito that wakes him up and he comes back down and says, "Geez, those ideas are great, but damn this mosquito." What is it?
The reason why is because anyone who is a visionary at any time throughout history is a person who has entered into that a priori realm, is a person who has gone into the atemporal a priori realm, which exists outside of time. And the reason why they return, the reason why they would even sacrifice their very life for that return, is because we are temporal beings who live in time. And there's something that is called the future, or we call it progress. And the reason why we return back to this realm is because the future can be better than the past. And what does that mean? It means that we've gathered more a priori knowledge and we've brought it into this realm. And that is a worthy sacrifice. That is the fire from the gods. That is all of that. It is that the visionary makes the great sacrifice to collect the a priori information, to bring it back to this plane, because the more we've gathered, the more the possibility of the beauty and the sublimity of the future exists. And the interesting thing that is somewhat paradoxical is that it is a process that goes on indefinitely, because we are finite beings, and the future isn't possibly, I don't have this, It's possibly an infinite process.
Speak for yourself, finite being.
What I'm saying is that the relationship between the temporal and the atemporal is, in a certain sense, an infinite possibility of a kind
Wait,
of
okay,
progression,
that's fine.
which is worth
That's
of
fine.
Your
You know,
life and the sacrifice of your life.
Yavul. However, for those dirty pagans, the eternal was it.
Oh, there are some.
They didn't. Well, no, hold on. They didn't give a hoot about your progress. I don't even know if the word future ever appears in a Platonic dialogue, for goodness sake. And one might ask, why? Was it of any significance? The building up of a wonderful society? I don't know. Did Socrates really care? I mean, he's playing his part, yeah.
No, he cared.
Of building up a new society? I don't
about
know.
Ancient Athens,
I don't know.
If you know about ancient Athens, it was totally misbehaving, and Socrates totally pointed that out.
Yeah.
And it got much better
Yeah.
through his sacrifice of his life. If you're talking about really what happened,
Hold it. I don't know if it got. Go ask Aristotle.
yeah, but
He had
there's
to
a
leave
lot
for
of,
Macedonia.
He had that coming
Education.
too.
I don't trust. There's a lot of things I don't trust about Aristotle.
Yeah, okay, but in any case, all goes well. All is well that ends up well, and so we end up with Auschwitz, everything, and the gulags. So things have been going very well. What I mean is that the things haven't really gone that well. You know, we have beautiful guns, but things haven't exactly gone towards that wonderful future that your Plato, or I don't know, somebody might have hoped for. In any case, in the Platonic dialogues, we see no explicit concern for the future other than the afterlife.
And
the
I don't
afterlife.
really,
That's all.
that's a state that you can enter into as a philosopher. You can spend your whole life within the Platonic realm. I'm a geometric designer. I've spent 15 years in that realm of solitude. There are traditions where you could remain in that realm for the whole of your life, if you so desire. But it's the difference between the pure and the applied. Like,
Okay.
mathematics is an applicable dimension, and it certainly has to do with a better reality for everyone, which is not simply some kind of only shared by the few who know. That wouldn't make any sense, and it's not necessary because we all carry that spark of the a priori within us, and so if you look at something like the School of Athens by Raphael, he's pointing that out. He's pointing out that every single person in the painting shares a spark of the a priori. It's not something that's held by like the priesthood under edict. It's not like that at all. Everyone has that spark of the a priori. It's not some rare thing. It's actually in a great abundance.
Hold on. You said you didn't trust Aristotle. However, Aristotle suggests something that is close to, sympathetic to at least one thing that you just said, when he says, and I will paraphrase, pantes anthropoi tu idenai, etc. He suggests that what is a man? A man is that being whose nature it is to desire the eternal. I'm loosely paraphrasing. That is to say, to enter into a world of intelligibility. Now, that means that we're all, in the respect that what is a man? You say we're all human, fine. So as humans, by nature, it is our nature to desire the perfection of things, and thus the intelligibility of things in their pure intelligibility. That is what we desire by nature, without apologies.
Well,
of course, Plato has to write an apology for Socrates, because people say no. Well, and of course, what are you looking at, the clouds up there? And there's a whole 3,000 years almost of writers who are discussing that issue. But it is intriguing at any rate, whatever we might believe personally or think or conceive or construe. It is intriguing, I think, that for somebody like Socrates, at least in the Platonic dialogues, the eternal is clearly an end in itself. It is not as what it is for the moderns, for Hegel and so forth, a mere universal, and then that sort of forces you back into the world of particulars as an inspiration to build a better society. This is a very modern vision of things. Yeah. It is something else. It is something else. They think of it differently.
Truncation of the
I would say it differently, though. If everyone on this earth were capable of entering into the a priori for some amount of time throughout the day and then returning to this temporal realm, you would certainly have world peace, because world peace is simply the product of.
But this is what the Nazi thought they were doing. Sorry,
no,
Sean.
they had no access.
No. Maybe you say I might agree, but they believe that.
No, I'm not joking around. I mean, this is really.
They believe that. No, I'm just saying. Yes, I'm just saying that they were convinced.
Not because of ideology. It's because this is the science of the soul.
Yes.
Not ideology.
But absolutely.
It's not that kind of a thing.
Look,
like geometry. Sean. Geometry is not something you can just dismiss by calling it, that. No, it's a serious, real thing. It's not dismissible like that.
Fine, but look, what do you say in the face of a phenomenon such as, and you can have a glimpse of this in Leni Riefenstahl, yeah? The Black Forest, the sublimity, Wagner. There's obviously something spiritual, a spiritual vision. And then you come back down from the spiritual vision because we have seen the destiny of humanity, and we will carry on the cross. The cross, we will sacrifice ourselves for this end, peace for all. This is the primary, not an ideology in this nitty-gritty, down-to-earth sense, down to earth, blood and soil, but in a very spiritual, lofty, and noble. I mean, how can we relate? How can you reduce Leni Riefenstahl's vision, and not only hers, but those who went in the Hermitage, almost as hermits in the Black Forest, in wonderful atmosphere, and had this vision of the destiny of mankind. However, they realize that vision brings you back to blood and soil and faces you with the demands of the moment to build a society. And Dostoevsky, the socialist, when he speaks about the socialist too has this
being too extreme, because it's a subtle, it's subtle. It's a subtle phenomenon. And they're being extremists. They're not doing it right. They're being extremists.
They thought they would. Look, Sean,
no,
you're familiar with Dostoevsky, I'm sure. Extreme. Yeah. At some point, every good socialist, at some point or other, will realize that the situation demands extreme measures for the sake of realizing the ideal. The ideal of the socialists, that is to say, universal peace.
But the ideal is not held by one vision. Like what I said was,
everyone
on this earth needs to be capable of entering into the a priori realm. But that is a subtle thing. I work on geometric design every day. It is a subtle, beautiful thing. It has nothing to do with ideological extremism at all. It has everything to do with the subtlety of nature and beauty and children, and the correct priorities of mankind, which are subtle, and they're lost if you don't take them subtly. If you chase after your ambitions, and if you don't treat life in a subtle way, you will lose the subtle things that you have. So obviously not like that. They were not serious. They weren't. To be serious means to be subtle.
Look, I mean, okay, but Raskolnikov was a kind of subtle man in some respect. Okay, maybe a parody. But nevertheless, I mean, if you look at, Ivan Karamazov is a kind of subtle man, yeah? He is multi-dimensional, multi-layered. And you get a sense that to establish universal truth, we all have to participate in this vision. And we have to encourage each other to participate in this vision. And at some point, Dostoevsky is warning that we might have to come up with the socialist conclusion that there is this moment in history, as it were, where it is necessary to carry this cross, a great sacrifice, which entails self-sacrifice, for the sake of having everyone join into this vision, so that this enterprise is not lost. To carry on the project, we need to fight radical evil, which is a question that, and a questioning that risks putting in danger the whole enterprise and all the progress we have achieved up till now.
Or what is radical evil? It's a being who does not know their destiny.
Well, fine. So
and
those,
then what happens?
yes, well, yeah, you know, but this is a remake of a certain vision of Christendom too, and radical evil became sort of the Juden, you know, because he didn't he didn't want to participate either in this beautiful vision of mankind, universal peace, universal society, and he somehow became the incarnation or the sort of the image of radical evil, and that in that respect only was somebody, for example, as Heidegger, what would you call him, an anti-Jew. Not because he could have cared anything about blood, that was bull, but because he saw that the Jew represented for him kind of an obstacle to this fusion of horizon, and so the future really of mankind. And then we're faced with Socrates. So then we're faced with Socrates, and for the ancients, they just did not care about that future. They just didn't care about the future.
Wait. Hold on. But then, wait a minute though. Then we look at Husserl, Heidegger's teacher, and you know, he did a much finer job. He did, you know, a Jew, a subtle Jew, right?
Yeah.
In comparison to Heidegger. Heidegger probably, with his vanity, his secret vanity, and this desire for something, he threw him out of, he became the rector of Feuerbach or whatever that's called.
Okay, but this is incidental.
He threw out his teacher and turned him over to the Nazis.
Oh yeah, okay, so what?
Husserl was chilling and did beautiful philosophical work. You know, how's that? And yeah, I would say as the model for something, Husserl.
Yeah. Chris knows Klein. And you know, Chris, are you familiar with Klein, Klein's saying that Husserl wanted to become a philosopher?
He wanted to become a philosopher, yeah. I'm just saying that at least he,
and that's great. I love Husserl, but you know that's just and that you know that of course he said that also of Descartes, but that he pointed in the right direction and he transcended Descartes' limitations. But that almost as Moses, he didn't get to the promised land. But you know, Husserl is great. But to refer to that is simply gossip. It's simply it's not, doesn't touch the core. It doesn't touch the core. You can't.
It does for me.
It can reflect the core, but it's not the proof. It can be a sign, but not the proof that he was wrong, right? That Heidegger was wrong. The fact that he did that is not the proof that he was wrong. It might be a sign that he's wrong, but we have to go back to the core in order to.
You got to look at Schopenhauer. You got to look at Schopenhauer and this concept of the denial of the will. This idea that it is our ambition, it is our blind drive that leads us to leave the contemplative life and want to make something of what we've done, of our philosophies. There's something far worse in the present era than simply leaving the a priori realm. It is the vanity of wanting to be recognized for what you have done,
Okay.
which is a problem, which was a problem for Heidegger.
But if you listen to, but just the other day, I
know.
The gods.
That's your ambition.
No,
That's your ambition talking.
it doesn't coincide with Heidegger will answer that this is. I mean, he is not. It's not about him. Let's not subjectivize this. I mean, this is all, going towards Sartre, if you like. I mean, it's about the new gods who are coming. He is in the shadow. Yeah, what counts as the crest of the wave, not him in his particularity. He is almost it's kind of a mouthpiece, as it were, and he thinks of himself as mouthpiece. In any case,
to be vain to be taken in by evil.
Okay, but what are you gonna do?
Okay, nothing.
No, I mean, to Heidegger. These are not the philosophical grounds.
It's not about Heidegger. That's a principle.
Yeah, okay, but no, I mean, I'm referring to Heidegger's message. And when you listen to the speeches in the Triumph of the Will, for example, if you look at the speeches of these representatives of the Nazi, you will see very little pointing to themselves how great they are. No, what the key is the future. The youth of today is sacrificing itself for the humanity of tomorrow. Right. It is, we are that in some sense. We are dying into that. And so our sacrifice is redeemed into the glory of the future, which is for humanity as a whole. So, okay, this is something, this drive, this drive.
Make America great again, right? You have to be you have to be a bloated, hate-filled people to go along with that story.
But now, wait. However,
nothing.
No, because that is not a futuristic statement. Make America great again doesn't mean turn the old America into a universal perfect society. It is a pointer backwards. Of course, it can be construed ideologically as a fake, demagogically, but in principle, it is not that. There is nothing as make Germany great again, period, for in those speeches of the Nazi in Leni Riefenstahl's the Triumph of the Will. It is mostly, the German that is there to sacrifice itself as a model for the universal society. It's something much bigger than that. But Chris, other interventions? Joachim, Paul, you're in the dark. You can't speak. Paul is in the dark, complete darkness. Now he is in the light.
He's afraid
again.
of being killed. Okay, he's not.
No, he fell into the dark. It happens. Even if you see the lights, you can fall back into the dark.
I mean, I don't know. I would come at the question of the afterlife in a much less philosophical way, really, myself. I spent a lot of time at one point, and even now sometimes, listening to people give like near-death experiences. You can find accounts of people who have been clinically dead or very close to death.
Okay.
And so the question of mystical experiences of that order has always intrigued me, and it's always challenging to know what to make of them because they don't come in any one shape or form.
Okay.
But personally, I want to be prepared for death because
you're sitting right over it.
I look forward to heaven. I mean, I want, and I don't even know what that means really, but one way I sometimes think about the afterlife is it's going to be a realm in which
It
nothing
is.
nothing is hidden, or it's nothing is concealed, because I can say one thing to somebody and keep another thing in my head.
Mhm.
But you can't. There's can't be any dishonesty with pure spirit, or in a resurrected state, a purified, rarefied state. I mean, there's so much that's impure.
But wait, what
And
happens when you live in a realm of total dishonesty? Like we see in
well,
that myth of her that
well, there's
you
hell.
can go to hell.
You can go, well, right.
And how do you go to hell? By being
So I
completely
mean,
dishonest in this life.
I read your whole article last night, Marco, of knowledge. And
What
evil.
article? Knowledge and evil. Yes.
Yeah, I read the whole thing last night, from beginning to end, out loud, and you made some kind of point in there. I was hoping that you could clarify about
So.
that in modernity, to do the good, you have to do the evil. You said something along those lines. I'm probably putting it
The
the
two
wrong
are
way.
intertwined, yes.
The two are
At
intertwined,
some
yeah.
point, it becomes
And our last-
necessary. It becomes
and our last-
necessary to do
yeah.
evil for the sake of the good, to establish the good.
Oh, right. So okay. Yeah. Well, let's maybe go inside soon. Let's go inside.
You have to be bad to be good.
You gotta
to
be
really
bad to be good.
To
You
be
gotta
really
be cruel
good.
to be kind. Yeah. Cruel to be kind. And
Well, you know,
measure.
this
Yeah.
is the
Be
prototypical Machiavellian point.
And
Be bad. Be bad in what way in order to be good?
Party in college for 4 years and then you'll be a proper adult. Promise.
It's like being bound by time. Right?
Well, you know that the good. What is good? What is good after all? Only good is this kind of Alyosha, yeah? Karamazov is kind of dreaming of being good. You have to be a man, the new manlyhood. You know, you have to understand that sometimes in life, to establish the good, you have to establish the good. To be really good is to establish the good. To do what is really good requires you to do evil, and so the two are together.
You have to get your hands dirty.
You have to be a founder, right?
No, well, no. It's not just hands dirty. It is not because I mean to get your hands dirty is not necessarily to do evil. The classics would not think about it in terms of evil. There's something more to it.
Well,
You have to actually put aside any sense of anything eternal. In fact, the whole point of eternity is put aside, and now you have to actually engage in evil for the sake of bringing about a full realization of the good. It demands that of us. You're not just getting your hands dirty to establish the society that is a republic, a founder of a republic. It is more than that. It is much more than that, and ultimately it has a universal scope that transcends the regular politics of the classical world.
I think that many things that we would call evil have that's just this modern notion because they're very weak and detached from reality itself. It's like two men fighting in the street. That's not evil. That's establishing boundaries as a man. The problem is that we live in this world where everything is radically disconnected from its natural sentiments, and then we call it evil.
Look, Plato is evil. Anybody.
I know, but wait a minute. If a man kills a man, is there no context in which that isn't evil? What if he's standing in his way as a man and he won't get out of the way of his life? This happens all the time. How do we know what evil is? How do you define evil? What is evil? I would say evil is crossing over a spiritual threshold from which you cannot return. That's evil. You could be evil, but evil is the wanton destruction of innocence. That's what evil is. But a grown man killing another grown man, that's not the wanton destruction of innocence. You have to destroy something innocent to be evil, right?
I want to say something. It's just I just had a thought really that with living here now in this world and viewing death as something that's going to come, it's going to swallow us all at some point. It's like, we're living with this deadline, and so you have this limited time horizon where you're trying to accomplish X, Y, or Z, and but to live in eternity,
Which is evil.
to live in eternity must mean to enter into the kingdom of heaven on earth. The kingdom of heaven is already here in a way for those who can live in eternity. That is, who can have no thought for the morrow. Right, like the words of Christ. Think not what you'll eat, what you'll drink. I was reminded earlier today of a passage from St. Paul's epistle to the Romans that was read at my wedding, where he says that the present sufferings of this age are not worthy to be compared with the glory that will be revealed in us through Christ Jesus. And so I don't know. I mean, we have brushes with eternity, and even these mystical visions that the most mystical visionaries can have. I always wonder, is that still just through a glass darkly? Even then, I mean, it might dazzle us. You could take a heavy dose of peyote or something, or ayahuasca, and you can go into these trance states where you're picked out of the space-time continuum like a moth off of the bed sheet, and you'll see things and feel things and hear things, and time feel all dilated and strange, but but it's a disorienting experience. Ultimately, it's to be in the afterlife it's like a baby in the womb. Like we are all in this world. It's like we are all we're all baby in the womb, and a baby might, through a section or something, might get some kind of glimpse outside of the womb, but you're still in this frail state of being an infant connected to an umbilical cord, and you might have this mystical vision of this timeless, this world outside the womb, with street lights and the honking cars, and can be, or maybe there's something beautiful, but the main thing is to become to get spiritual nourishment and spiritual strength, so that when you are born through death into the next life, you are not on life support, so that you don't have to go through purgatory. Basically, you don't have to. That you've been nurtured. You've had the spiritual nourishment to. I mean, this is just my understanding of the afterlife, basically.
A baby in the womb has more or less opposite living conditions. That doesn't for a breathing human being. You can't breathe in there. So what you're seeing on the other side might not be something you would spontaneously like necessarily.
Well, it's like no baby would want to leave the womb.
No,
ever.
honestly, I ask myself all the time, who wants to go to heaven, really?
Well,
A place where nothing's hidden. Is that what anyone wants?
You're in a little sack of amniotic fluid, and you don't have to budge an inch. Every you're just in this warm, perfect, like temperature controlled, soft space, pure love, pure.
Oh.
And I think what's happening now a little bit is that the people are like this with what I mean with quarantine and the people all being locked away and all in this sort of atomized society. It's like we people just want to be in the womb. People want to have this, people are craving this sense of security, of comfort,
Yeah.
of just, feeling like you can just sit on an easy chair and see your money will just magically accumulate in your bank account so you can order food and takeout. And
Why is all
your
that?
little hobbies. Well, because it's painful. I mean, the baby who leaves the womb, or the person who emerges into the light and into the light of eternity, ultimately into the afterlife after one dies, but also just the eternity of being a human being who is willing to encounter spirit and not just just vie for resources and love and attention, but to give of oneself and to enter into relationship. Because the thing about a baby in a womb is, yeah, it might have a mate in the shade, but unless it has a twin, it's all alone. And it's just all there alone. And we're a little bit the same way. Like, unless you do the hard work of breathing and walking and feeling the pain of sunlight and of drawing breath, then you can't ever enter into a relationship with others and to experience more profound love and more profound
All right, let me
peace.
go from there.
Well, did you have anything to say, Joachim?
Well, I suppose this is gosh.
Next.
Yeah.
That's good. Next.
Happy hour. This is happy hour. Okay, well, I suppose this could relate to, from the notes, the relationship between particular and general providence. Again, so relating nexi, relating worlds, entering into communion with problems, pain, moral drama, the necessity for virtue, these things. That seems to be the correlative of your afterlife analogy here.
Yeah. Well, it's like, if I could attain virtue, just like me, Chris Johns, I attained virtue one day. Wow, cool. The only problem is no one else is virtuous. That's me. Either I'm bored or-
Virtue does not require other people being likewise.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
dialogue
I know,
does.
but all I'm saying is that, like, if virtue were an individual.
Oh, but you can have dialogue with the dead.
Well,
What the?
All right, now.
The dead.
In fact, more than that, you could also say that what Socrates is implying is what others have also stressed in antiquity, in pagan antiquity, namely that dialogue is always a dialogue among the dead.
dialogue is always a dialogue among the dead.
I like that.
Look, Rousseau, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, in his Promenade, he would actually go as far, this is the closest he comes to the ancients, I think, as to say that in order to understand me, you must be, as far as possible, dead, like a dead man. And he's trying to attain the standpoint of a dead man. This is
Warning, our meeting is about to end again.
Yeah.
We're gonna have less than a minute, and on the dead, on the theme of the dead, we'll call you. I'll call you back. Okay, let's stop it here and let's get back the next one online talking about the dead.
Okay.
I'm dead.
I'm dead too.
Pretty much.
I'm very much alive.
Mettre fin à la réunion. Yes, but you're faking it. Mettre fin à la réunion pour tous. How are we to understand the ultimately the eternal, yeah? The afterlife, yeah? So I had suggested, perhaps prior to you coming in, Paul, that
Yeah.
there tend to be two approaches to the afterlife. and I refer to both as extravaganzas. One is the clinical extravaganza, where if a clinical vision of of knowledge of the afterlife, yeah, as an extravaganza. This guy is clinically has a problem, yeah. Obviously, it is ridiculous. It's a projection or fantasizing. Okay, and it's a this straightforward dismissal. And the other one is I refer to, I believe, as a neo-romantic extravaganza. In this case, you take that vision seriously. You know, they recently came out. Is it recent? I don't know. I cannot say recent. But I saw I saw an advertisement somewhere of a film Fatima, where we have great special effects applied to the subject. You know, Mary showing herself and the children looking at her. So this is typical, I think, of films, but this is very, very almost a superhero type of film. So there, these two understandings of knowledge of the afterlife both suggest that to know the afterlife is to know as we know ordinary things. Yes, Sean, I believe, referred to Husserl, and Husserl worked hard to show that there is a knowledge. I don't know if is this connection good? No, I hear my own voice pixelized, as it were. Okay.
Middling. I can see him.
Okay. So you know, there's a knowledge that is not of that order. That it is not, as you know, the so-called subject, to speak in modern terms, looking at an object. I have a vision. I saw it when I was reading a book of for my son, Joan of Arc, and there was, you know, how do you account for saying, well, Jeanne d'Arc had a vision, yeah, and I spoke of it in very simple, you could say poetic terms, but I mean, it's very simple, down to earth terms. She read the Bible, and when you read the Bible, you see the Bible inspires in you the vision of these people, the characters, and you think about these characters, and they're ennobling, and they inspire to be a hero. You actually hear them speak to you. The books, you know what we say often, the book speaks to me, yeah? And these characters actually speak to her. And it is a kind of miracle, because the book, after all, is divine. And it can be understood and interpreted that way. And so they spoke to her, and they ennobled her, they inspired her to live heroically. Okay, that is perfectly intelligible to a Socratic. But
I wonder who she's talking about.
Who?
Yeah, which character? Or characters plural.
Jeanne d'Arc. Yes. Who I was reading a book about her life, and I was explaining.
Joan of Arc.
Yes, I hope you can hear me well. And I was explaining what was said in the book, which was not altogether self-evident.
Yes.
You know, how do we account for this story? How do we account for this story? And how do we account also, therefore, of how do we understand knowledge of the afterlife? Is it knowledge in, I'm shifting a bit, but, you know, in the respect that, you know, sometimes we think of certain knowledge as as ordinary, yeah? Just supernatural, in the sense of that is sort of a superhero knowledge, yeah? A superpower. So you see not this image, but an image that is from the beyond. But it is not of the order of images now. What I had suggested was that knowledge is understood platonically, all knowledge, as just a trace of what knowledge truly is. And what knowledge truly is turns out to be to speak in
What does
obvious
it turn out?
terms, virtue. But it is about mediation, mediation of spheres of intelligibility. So it is alive. It is also an end in itself, this knowledge of the afterworld. Huh? Okay,
But
and
Marco,
yeah.
just how does this relate to the idea that we're already dead, so that the afterlife,
yes.
in a sense, is
Yes. Well, that suggests that who is knowing? Yeah. Who is really the knower? And the knower is the dead. Okay. In other words, you must put your mask down, or even if you're holding it, but you will be as you recognize yourself as dead. What is the difference between a dead man and a living man? The dead man goes to his wardrobe and picks up a mask, and he is alive. He enters into the world of the mask, into this theater. The ancients speak about it as a theater. Plotinus, the soul entering the theater of life and finds itself in this kind of mad world where nobody knows what he is.
Is the dead? So death is then equivalent to eternity?
Well, death is what you are prior to being born.
You're not
You are
dying, you don't
dead.
have a body.
Prior and
Right?
after.
Right, you're not dying, but dying simply means that the mask is wearing off.
Yeah.
So it's the permanent eternal state.
For the Platonic, clearly, it is that which you are. This old Chan Zen line about this koan. Yeah? What is show me your face prior to your birth? How do you show your face prior to your birth? Huh? So clearly it is not of the order of images that you can advertise. But
Give it a crack.
I mean, how do you represent that? Yeah. And no, okay, you represent it precisely by living. I mean, you are representing it now. I'm representing it through my logos primarily. You're representing your true face. Show me your true face. I mean, how do you show your true face? Knowledge and mediation? Yes?
Mediation as knowledge.
Right. Well, knowledge as mediation. Of course, you can think of mediation in many terms. The alternative, the classical alternative to, and I'm not going to, of course, we're not going through textual exegesis here. Okay, I could bring this out through that, but these are suggestions and invitations to discussion. The standard modern understanding or view of knowledge, the subject knows something, right? We're talking about something else here. You enter into a realm of problems. When you enter into the realm of problems, you are no longer a mask that is looking at other appearances. Yes? And you don't find yourself confronted with this object or that object, but you're in the belly of problems and you're articulating, you are mediating problems. You're not any longer moi, ego, in any way. You are simply this act of mediation. of problems.
Is that what the philosopher in the allegory of the cave? Is that what the philosopher sees?
Okay.
In a word, does
Okay.
he see that the good is that in order that forms are good in that setting?
Well, the question I was asking Sean, yeah, just a minute ago, or I mean, a while ago, what is it that might have prompted the philosopher, who is not necessarily a Platonic or Socratic philosopher at all?
Oh, might be Buddha. Huh?
No, because I mean, he's a pre-Socratic, clearly,
Yes.
because he was prompted by another one. And to what extent is this mythos didactic? I mean, what is the message of the story? No? Clearly, it is something that requires to be thought through, philosophically. Now, with that being said, okay, is there something that prompts the philosopher who has this vision? Is there something that prompts him to return, aside from charity? Yeah? The vision, it turns out, that he has achieved, the vision of ideas, of problems, may not be adequate. Not because the ideas are not adequate, they're not the ends in themselves, but because the vision that we can achieve is not adequate. This says nothing of the inadequacy of eternity, of the realm of ideas. It says something about our inadequacy, or the inadequacy of that vision.
It's an inadequate human life,
it says something about the inadequacy of our current understanding of what it means to know.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it is I who knows that, it is I who has. So it is inviting us, the story is inviting us to discover the ideas in dialogue.
But so then there's a real problem there.
There is a real problem, and
yes.
that is to say that the ideas are discovered as problems that are elements of dialogue.
Not only that, but the philosopher explaining this to the city apparently gets crushed.
So
it's happening now. It's
nice.
happening
Better
right
than
now.
drinking hemlock.
Yes.
I suppose so. It's
Next.
one
So
more cushion,
this is my
Michael.
cave. I enter into the cave. So yes. So he is discovering those ideas now. It is the story of the mythos is inviting us to discover the ideas in dialogue within the city. You know what Cicero says about Plato, about Socrates. Socrates brought the ideas back into the city, which is to say the place where you have dialogue. And now the ideas, the fundamental spheres of intelligibility, the fundamental problems of life are here. And
Well, I don't think.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, there are within.
My understanding of Cicero's statement of Socrates is that it's not that he brought the ideas into the city; it's that he himself went down into the city.
No. He says literally. He brought the ideas back into the city, because people thought they were in the heavens, and the ideas are within the polis, within the civitas, or the city, within citizenship, within civil life, within political life. They're here.
But then the meaning would be then that he was no longer searching for the ideas in the sky, but searching for them in the city.
He didn't seek him after. He didn't seek him outside of human life. You don't seek the divine outside of the human.
Right.
So now the divine, the ideas, turn out to be not those things that you thought you could have a vision of, as the romantics might have a vision. Oh, I saw the light. No, but I have to go back. The socialist has his ideal, and he has to go back. That prompts him to go back to that prompts him to go back to ordinary life, as Sean was saying, right?